Hello, everyone. I am super excited to welcome you all to this exclusive mega panel discussion on the topic looking at employees' holistic well being. The pandemic forced difficult to overcome obstacles on employees' mental and physical well being. With hybrid work continuing to stay, how can HR leaders devise effective well being strategies beyond the vaccination plan to take care of the holistic well being of their workforce? To answer this question and many more such pressing questions, we have the experts from across the industries joining us today. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed speakers for this session. Kuresha Ramahutar, Chief People and Culture Officer at MMD Steel; Nirvik Goyal, Deputy Chief Human Resources Officer at VFS Global; Varsha Ponuswamy, Head of Human Resources at the Oriental Insurance Company; and Ali Khurshid Ahmed, Group HR Performance Manager at Pharma Holdings, who will be moderating this session. Welcome, speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, then, without any further delay, I would like to invite Ali to take over the session. Over to you, Ali.
Thank you so much. That was a pretty neat introduction, Nilanjana. Thank you so much. Right, so ladies and Samad, welcome to the session. This is a mega panel, as Nilanjana was talking about, and the topic is pretty interesting. Okay, it's pertinent, it's timely, and I think it's something that we should be talking about, right? Before we get into it, because this is an Economic Times event, so we should talk about some numbers, right? So last time I checked, the global wellness industry was estimated at $4 trillion US dollars. $4 trillion US dollars. That's a lot of value if you look at that number, right? And the pace at which this has been growing, it's almost double the pace of the growth of the global economy itself, right? So it's like one of the fastest growing constituents in the economy. If you look at the corporate wellness industry or corporate well-being industry, if you want to call it, then it is around 50 billion US dollars as of now. And it is all set to grow up to 80 billion US dollars by 2027. There's a lot of numbers, right? So why is this growth happening? Why are people focusing on it more than they were focusing before? That's the theme that we want to touch upon, right? So the overarching theme of the whole conference is high tech, high touch workplaces, right? So we want to explore how technology can help us being better at maintaining, managing, spearheading employee well-being within our own environment. And we'll also talk about, different trends that are taking place, stories that you guys would have to share. You all come from fantastic experiences, and we'll be talking about all of that, right? So let's get started. I think we'll start with you, Kuresha. Let's start with something which is like a starter. Okay, so for people who are joining from different part of the world, let's first try and do an intro of what exactly employee well-being is. Okay, we all understand, since decades now. More than that, we've seen a lot of companies have been trying to take care of their employees' physical needs, right? Physical fitness, all those corporate gyms, if you would say. Here in the Middle East, we see a lot of companies giving out discounted memberships in fitness centers, salons, and the like, right? SHRM, rightly calls it the employer's duty of care, right? So every employer has a responsibility towards the employees that it employs, and that's the duty of care. You cannot run away from your duties, right? So what do you think can we add in addition to the physical dimension if we talk about employees' holistic well-being?
Yeah. I mean, we've been thinking about it for a long time, and I'm a strong believer that when you look at somebody, you look at the person as a whole. You don't only look at one aspect or one part of it. It's a whole being, So even when you talk about well-being or wellness, you don't only look at the physical well-being. You look at the mental, the spiritual, or even you can go beyond that. You can go to social well-being as well. And these are different dimensions and aspects that companies have started to invest in because they've seen the benefit of doing it, but we definitely not there yet. There are so many companies that are still trying to improve on those practices. Physical well-being, for sure, we've seen it since quite a while now, but particularly with COVID and with all the issues that have come up in the recent years, we've seen more and more companies and more people focusing on the on the mental and spiritual well-being as as part of their wellness package. And for me, this is very important because if your employees are stressed, people are not in their right state of mind, then how do you actually expect them to perform and be 100% there, even if physically there, if mentally you are not actually in this place, then it's not going to work. For me, it's very important to look at all those aspects. And true, it's not very easy to devise practices that look at everything together. And then we need to realize that people are different, right? What's going to make me feel good mentally might not work for somebody else, right? And if you have a big group, you've got people from different countries, different backgrounds, different beliefs, spiritual beliefs, then it's even more difficult to come up with things that will apply to everybody. So, but I still believe that these are things that are important to consider. And I think more and more companies will be looking at not only the physical well-being, but they will also look at the mental well-being, how they can help people, be spiritually happy or feel at ease or at peace with themselves, and then grow further. You also see some companies investing now in more social activities and getting their people involved in that. Why? Because, a lot of people feel very grateful, or they feel rewarded when they are able to contribute to their communities. And if you give them the opportunity to do this, it helps them also feel better in terms of their social needs or their social well-being. So I think all of these aspects come together. And when you craft your proposition and looking at well-being, all of those aspects are important to take into account, not only the physical or even the mental, but it's a really whole package. Yeah.
Fantastic. Those are some really interesting insights, Koisha. And I'll pick from where you just said that, we have to take ownership of that, we have to take responsibility of that, and it's a whole package, right? So, Nirbhik,
Exactly.
you've been in, thank you so much, Koisha. We'll come back to you. Nirbhik, this one is for you. We say that, usually leaders, how are you doing? You have a fantastic smile. I believe VFS is taking good care of you, and you're taking good care of the people there, right?
Yeah, we try really hard. We're very passionate about it, like all of us on this call. So yeah, we try hard.
Fantastic. So the question for you, Nirbhik, we usually say that the leaders, they set the tone for everything that happens inside the organization, right? So whether it is implementing or activating or bringing to life the policies and procedures in a company, or any new initiative, if there is a change program, it always starts at the top, right? So what role do you think specifically, adding on to what Koisha was saying, she raised some really fantastic points, like taking care of everyone's unique needs. One size doesn't fit all, as she just said, right? So what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So what do you think the role is that of a leader? Do you think if a leader is able to model the right kind of behavior with respect to taking care of people's holistic well-being and the unique needs that they have, do you think that's going to make a difference? So for instance, I'll just give a quick example. Let's say lunch breaks, right? So we say that people should be taking their breaks, and they're there for a reason, and there are actually no brownie points for you sitting and working through the lunch hour, right? The break is there for you to take it, get recharged, and come back. So if the leader starts taking his or her lunch breaks religiously, do you think that's going to send a message below that this is important and we should start doing it, and everything else also? Like, this is just an example. So
oh, it's very interesting that you bring up this example, because when I started my career in the early 90s, yes, I'm that old, I was in the hospitality business, and as a lobby manager standing in a 5-star hotel, everything is urgent and important because there are guests all around you, and everything has to be done there and then. So, the time management matrix and the urgency and the importance that the HR gurus taught me much later, I still am not able to apply it. And we used to miss our lunch breaks. But, there's a cost to it. You suffer from acidity, you have a weak digestive system over the years, and you realize, and then you make corrections down the years that you keep, and there's a very trivial example, but very important one. You keep a biscuit or two in your drawer. because you don't want to go through that cycle of weakening your digestive system just because everything is urgent and important. So, Croatia, what she said is really important because the mental involvement leads to physical weakening. It's all interrelated. And while as a youngster, you love doing that, and there's a kick in, being that lobby manager that sorts out everything at the spur of the moment, it kind of gets onto you when you have shift turnarounds, because many of these industries work back to back, 3 shifts a day, etc. So from a leadership standpoint, I think walking the talk is really important. You can't tell your people to go and have lunch when you skip your lunch every day, or only live on. It's very macho. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a feminist or other way, to have coffee after coffee to stay on the top of your game. But there's a cost to that as well. And I'm taking very trivial examples because these are examples that all of us can relate to around us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, just to quickly add, you just said that there are no points for not taking that break, right? And I personally have seen this in our offices, that even if you come from a company where these breaks were common and you're used to taking these breaks because of course you should be taking, your human, but then you come to an office where nobody actually gets up to take the break, so you almost start feeling guilty for going and having your lunch, right? So,
or if you're leaving work at 3 or 4 p.m. Ali, and somebody says you've taken a half day, it really dampens the spirit, so these are not good signs, and these are bad practices in my opinion. I think what companies learned from the pandemic, and I think in some ways the pandemic has been a great best practice initiator. When we started working from our homes, people started, Infosys, Wipros, TCS, they started realizing, great companies, Google, Facebook, started realizing that the boundaries were merging and people didn't know when to stop working, because they thought they are now supposed to work 24/7, because they did not know how to impress the boss, because boss was not in front of them anymore. And I think that hybrid balance that the companies specifically, there's a company called GitLab, there's Google, they started prescribing breaks and started checking people's login and log out time to help them balance their days better. I think that's really important. So I keep coming back to Quresha's point, because that balance between physical, mental, spiritual happiness is really important. The last point I want to make is that we need to encourage our colleagues to be present in the moment. That email that the boss generates at 3 a.m., that the employee sees while brushing his teeth or her teeth, that gets them out of the home space even while they are in front of their children. I think this all is quite damaging to the overall well-being of not only individuals, but also their families and the community. So I just believe as leaders, we've got to walk the talk, and what we read in the books and preach, we really need to lead from the front.
Some very powerful points, and thank you so much for keeping it simple, because as the quote says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? Thank you so much, Nirbi. We'll come to Varsha now. Varsha, our peers are making some fantastic observations here already. And Nirvik just talked about the pandemic, right? So what has happened is, it's not that we were not evolving or companies were not focusing on employees, well-being and wellness and, health and mental and physical and spiritual. I like that word. Well-being, they were taking care of that. But the pandemic, what it did, it actually accelerated that focus, right? So people started focusing on it more. So let's say what people were planning to do in 5 years' time, they had to do in a few months' time, right? What you were planning to do in 10 years' time, you had to do in, let's say, 6 months' time, right? So common example was so many companies not even having a policy that could address remote work, right? And everyone was downloading everyone else's policies and changing logos and all of that, right? So you have a lot of experience, Varsha, in different sectors. What are the kind of changes that you personally are seeing, let's say, last decade versus this decade? Good changes where companies are prioritizing, if you have any examples to share or any stories to tell, we're all ears. Varsha.
Yeah, sure. Changes. I think one thing that we know about changes is that is the only constant thing in our life. It's whether the constancy of the life is not there, the changes that's basically keeps happening. But I think this whole pandemic has given us a completely different spectrum of what changes, the definition of changes are. I think in terms of this whole hybrid structure, or in terms of how people will work from home, when there were also not policies in the company of remote working, everything happens for the best. So I think this whole era of last 1.5 year, 2 years has also given us as an organization and also as an HR leader, completely a different overview of how to manage changes. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I always think from the, being an HR field, that you have on one hand top management, and on the other hand, you have the whole human resources, all of the employees. Yeah. What really worked to manage changes is the involvement from both the side. As much as employee, we very hands-on in taking care of employees, psychological, physical, mental health. Physical I already touched, and also spiritual. That's a beautiful point Kuresha has mentioned. At the same time, I think it was also important for us as an HR leader to see where the organization stands. What are the business structure? What are the business strategy? How do we merge those business strategy and convert the human capital initiative to ensure that the business strategies are met, or business strategies are won? And one of the, I would say, a successful step that we have taken is the involvement, the engagement from the employees. And it was really mind-blowing to see that so many people have come up with ideas, to the extent saying that let's go for the salary cut by themselves, even not from the top management. So the beautiful part to see is that when you involve people, or you engage them, the ideas really don't have to come from top down. The only one thing that has to come from top down is the culture. If the organization has a culture, or if the top leadership has the culture to involve, to engage the workforce, the numbers will come from bottom up. The culture has to come from top down.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a very powerful point.
And that is what I have noticed, that to bring them on board, to tell them that we are with them. I think we are this whole working remotely, not able to see people, or impressing bosses. We in fact have done that. Anybody who would log out beyond a particular time, they have to give a reason of why they have logged out beyond that time. To go to that extent, this is the time that you can sleep an hour longer, or a half an hour longer, because you don't have to commute. This is the time that you spend little time with your family, because you are closing the work. You don't have to commute back and spend whatever half an hour, 1 hour that people commute. So I think we also, humans are social animals. So to deal with them, to engage, and to see that, okay,
Thank you so much, Varsha. I'm sure your employees love you to be there as the head of HR. That you're taking care of them like a mother does for the family. Fantastic thought. Thank you so much, Varsha. Kuresha, we'll use a prompt that Varsha just gave. She said that you have to talk about involvement, right? So rather than just pushing things through and not taking anyone's buy-in, that's not really how people of this decade, the millennials especially, are going to work, right? No, it's an evolved workforce, right? I was reading yesterday that Goldman Sachs, a huge brand, right? So the CEO in February last month, he sent a memo to all his employees, and he said that everybody has to come back to work now because remote work was a temporary aberration. Okay, it was like a temporary fix. It's not something that we want to do for a long time, and you have to be there, right? This is what he did. I think Nirbhik can relate with that. So what happened, in spite of all those reminders, in spite of all that show of strength, just 50% of people showed up, right? and the other 50% did not show up. And there is a meme going on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've seen it. So a technology company is saying that it's become really easy to hire people now, because as soon as a technology company says you have to come back to office, we start approaching their employees and they are very forthcoming to join us, right? So this is a very changed workforce, right? So what do you say to that? Balancing remote work, flexible work, in-office work, taking buy-in, involvement, all of those things. Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting topic, to be honest. And you say, we say that we want people to be involved, right? So if you want them to be involved, you need to get them involved in the discussion of where the company is going. Basically, what you're doing is creating a culture for them. Why are you doing this? Because you want them to stay with you, right? You want to retain them. But then you don't involve them in, and you just push decisions on them and you expect them to say yes. So it's conflicting, right? Now, when it comes to remote work, I don't think many companies were ready for this. I mean, if we look at MMD, our company is a manufacturing company. So tomorrow, if somebody on a platform, for example, is going to tell me I'm going to do my work remotely, it's not going to work. We agree, right? Because that person has to be physically present. But when it comes to positions where, the work can be done remotely, you trust the person, you know that the deliverables will be there. I think, you've got a psychological contract with people working together with you. And in this contract, you have an agreement, so you have expectations from them, but they also have expectations from you. We say you care for your people and your people will care for your business. So how do you show them that you are doing this? You expect them to care for your business, make sure it's growing, you get good results at the end of the year. But then how do you reciprocate and show your good faith or your willingness to walk in their shoes? So this is something that we're trying to do now. If you see that the results are being delivered, you see that the work can be done remotely. I don't say it has to be 100%, but I believe that you need to look at individuals. You need to look at people's, their role, the requirements, what are they required to do? And you see how you can accommodate. If you sit down with somebody today who wants to work remotely, and you really sit down, understand that person, the person also understands the requirements for the position, then you come to an agreement together. Nothing says that you cannot have a trial period, right? You can get them going for a few months, see how it goes. If something goes wrong, you discuss constant communication and feedback. If it doesn't work, then you both know you tried, it didn't work, so we get back to where we were. But if it works, it can be a wonderful thing for that person. And you would see that, even their efforts and everything that they do, it will be doubled. They will feel better, but you are also getting the results. They don't need to commute. It's also a benefit for you, yeah? And we've seen companies where they didn't really need a big office anymore because the people could work remotely, particularly tech companies. It's a huge saving, but the work is still being done. So I'm really for looking at people. You would look at them, you would try to accommodate for them, and this is where you try to devise your practices. I'm not saying it's easy, because when you have maybe 2,000, 4,000 people, looking at them individually is difficult. But where you can accommodate, I think there's no reason why you should not. And this is where our role is important, We work on getting the practices ready, we put in place systems, procedures. Our role is to enable them to do better, right? So how are we doing this? We need to listen to them, we need to be there, and it's only by listening to them that you will be able to come up with those strategies. So for me, it's very important, and I wouldn't completely shut down the remote work, I would see how to accommodate for it. Yeah.
Of course. So for positions that we can adapt, of course, yes. For positions that cannot, there are a lot of other things that we can do, right? And technology has been a big support in this, right? So it's not just remote work or Zooms and all these platforms. We can actually use the technology for doing a lot of other things also, right? So previously we were using it for sending out those employee engagement forms and the smileys and all of that. We can do a lot more now, right? There's so many options in the market. Would you like to talk about that?
Correct. Actually, there are so many things that you can do. If you look at it, for example, for us, we are based in different countries. Even if we look at the leadership team, we are in different countries. Before we had the options or the technology was available, maybe we would meet more often. But now you can have different meetings. You can have people would get in touch with you more often. It doesn't mean we eliminate completely the human touch, We still have people who are based on site, who would meet them physically. But this also helped us to have other options. Today, I don't need to ask, maybe if I know one great consultant or a leadership guru or someone I would like my people to meet or, have a session with, I don't really need to fly that person down. I can have a session, I can get more people involved in. If people want to reach out and I'm not in the same country, they can still reach out to me. If they want to share feedback, you've got so many options today. If they feel more comfortable to discuss with somebody else, or, we do have consultants who do consultations with our team members. If, for example, they want to discuss something in particular with them, it's a trained psychologist. So the person can reach out directly to the consultant or to the psychologist. They discuss their issue, and it's completely, it's only them and that person. They don't need to come to me or to anybody else. They book the session, and it's done remotely. The person does not even need to go to that. He's not. Maybe they're taking time after work, or it's totally up to them. But they can reach out at any time. And without the technology, all of this would not have been possible.
Thank you so much, Kuresha. Yeah, those were some really useful additions to the discussion. Nirbhik, so Kuresha says that we're not saying it's going to be easy, but we are going to say it's going to be worth it, right? So just to quickly rephrase, you have been working with a lot of big brands, Nirbhik. You come with a very solid experience. Some giants like Tata Group, AIG, the Oberoi Group. You said you worked in hospitality earlier on. What are some of the initiatives that you have seen being implemented in the companies that you were working? Or I'm sure you have a good peer network also. So would you like to share a few stories or initiatives which are like fresh off the hook, and our viewers who are joining us from different parts of the Middle East and the globe actually can go back and replicate those initiatives? If you could talk about that.
So I think the first and foremost is what we discussed when we kind of first talked about building that culture, which I think Varsha brought out beautifully. And we should not take for granted that intuitively all our leaders and managers have been wired to really take well-being, health, work-life balance as everybody talks about it, but everybody is not wired or programmed to diligently follow the tenets so it is very important to coach, guide, mentor, and even have specific training interventions if required, and active communication platforms to really highlight the benefits of this holistic approach. So I think that is something that has been universally kind of my experience, and I'm sure all my colleagues on this call, including you, Ali, are great exponents of that in your respective organizations. Specifically, lots of tools and apps, and I find them, there are many, but there's a value to each one, and we really have to figure out which one. So it's the skeptic view is that, okay, another app, but I think it's really tailored to the organizational need that one is able to establish and implement. I think that really helps. In my experience, at one point of time in the bank, the Stepathlon initiative worked very well. Everybody got out of their comfort zone. By week 2, the competition was so intense that, and it was not about the number of steps, it was about number of kgs that one was losing. And it was not driven by HR. It was just self-driven and motivated by the peer pressure, as we call it.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Is that it remains, we set up some gyms and some best practices around it, and it became sustainable. So it was a one-time activity to begin with, but then it became something that sustained in the organization. I think the second point I want to talk about, besides the mindset, is that whatever one does should be sustainable. It's really important. So it's not the app, it's the sustainability. The third is so some physical examples, I think the outreach programs or helplines where our colleague can call without having to worry about who's listening, what would be the judgment of this particular facet of my life that I share. That neutrality and that balance and that confidentiality are extremely important. And I have found, even if the usage is low, the gains are immense because it really hits somebody who needs it. And that's really important. So I think that's really important in my view. Besides that, I think
just a second, Vivek, about the helpline. I think that's a fantastic initiative, and if organizations are able to do it internally within the comfort zone of the corporate structure, I think people would be a lot more comfortable than using national helplines, and all of those helplines are there, of course.
Yeah. So I think, Ali, I think it's, again, one has to assess the organizational need. If the culture is so strong that people have inherent trust in the organization, go for it. If the culture is not that strong yet, if some outside help is required, why not? So I'm an exponent of really evaluating the need and then working.
And balancing both.
Yeah. The last thing I want to emphasize is, and I'm not trying to advocate a program-led approach. I'm saying there can be programs, but I think there has to be an umbrella, there has to be a framework, a governance. And therefore, the last piece is what Varsha very eloquently already spoke about, was the policies. Now, whether it's flexi working, whether it's remote working, whether it's support, whether it's creating ergonomics in the workplace at home and sending a chair and a desk and I think all those things are extremely important, and one has to look at it holistically. So I'll stop here because there are many, many other things that one can share and has done in their career. But I think these are the 4 principles around which I think we can succeed as people.
Fantastic. Sustainability, as you said, absolutely important. Doing one-off initiatives might help, in the short term, but doing things as part of a larger framework, which is more embedded, which is more taken care of in the long run, and it's like a way of working inside that particular company is something that is more advisable. Those are some really fantastic points there. Thank you so much for that. Varsha, last time you were talking, you talked about salary cuts that people had to take when the times were tough, right? So, and I think Kuresh also made some very practical points there. These are good things, and every company might, or at least the managers or the leaders or people who are taking care of people, HR, they want to do initiatives which support the employees, right? We might have people, but there would be challenges also, right? So you want to implement these initiatives, or you want to build a holistic framework or umbrella, as Nirvik just said, where everyone feels comforted, everyone feels protected, and everyone feels motivated to give the best that they can give. What are some of the barriers that you've personally seen, or you want to talk about some challenges that people might face? So let's say there are some people who are joining us who might not have these structures in place, right? So, and they might be interested, or they might be encouraged by the thoughts that are being shared in this panel, and of course in the other so many sessions that this event is doing. So what are your inputs for them? What are the challenges that they should be prepared for and work to encounter? Yeah.
The barriers or the challenges, I mean, it's easily said than done. I think it comes again from top down. If the management or the top says that we will take care of you. So we had this very strong message that we will not lay off anybody. We will stretch our limits. But to stretch our limits, then what can you do? So, people came forward and they said, okay, we can look at the health insurance policies where we have ABCD so far. Now for next renewal, we will only have AB or ABC. Let's let go of D. So those were very kind of awakening calls for all of us to see if we involved. I think involvement goes a long way. And it's not just pandemic, it's the culture that has been developed for years after years. And as Nirbhik said, that the sustainability. So you already have that faith in the management have faith in people. So I think that whole marriage has to happen between the two parties. And one prominent factor who can make that marriage, who may make that marriage happen very well, is the HR leadership. I think we play a very important role in these two parties. And and that's when, the keeping the communication extremely open. We
Yeah.
have initiatives like, Nirbhik has touched base, but, like from anywhere, um, one second, it was anytime, anywhere. So we had some sort of app, we said from anytime, anywhere. We have Ping Me within that app where people were just pinging each other, during the pandemic and lockdown. It has nothing to do with, oh, let me call HR or let me call. It just to open their hearts. They were going through a tough phase at home, the spouses has lost job or children were unwell, COVID, etc., the health wise. So Ping Me. And, I would say that, in fact, we had this whole thing that people, we see a large communication between two parties, though we did not know what were they saying, it was designed like that. But then we would just send them sometime a small gift, or a pastry, or, as small as that. In the different branches, we had a buddy group where we had in one branch, big branch, we had 5 people as buddy, and they were looking after all the health related, if any colleagues have any, or their family has any health related issues. So even management at that time said, use your corporate card. In case of any emergency, medical emergency, just use your corporate credit card. And then we will look at it. Those kind of openness.
Yeah. Varsha, you talked about the corporate card. So this is like you trying to take care of their financial wellness also, right? So because usually what happens is we talk about all kinds of wellness, but we usually ignore the financial wellness, right? So I think that's extremely important that you talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we may take reimbursement later on, but at this point of time, when the person has to be hospitalized, just use the company money. We will take, we'll look at it later on. Kind of that open approach has breached the barriers. I think the barriers that you were talking about, the challenges, of course, there were a lot of challenges, but I think the HR leadership, the management plays a big role in keeping the communication open. Let people bring their issues, and not that necessarily that we have to take care of all the issues, but keep the communication open.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Varsha. So we have an eye on the clock also. We don't have much time left, but quick thoughts. Nirbhik, one big question that people at the level of all of you, all of you are CXOs, taking care of your department, heading a big part of the organization, right? So there is a tendency of usually the CEOs and different CXOs, CFOs, they talk about the bottom line, right? So whenever you want to raise an initiative, you want to raise a new program, you want to talk about change, you want to do something good for the people, then they come back to you and they say, what is this going to do to the bottom line, right? So they don't want to lose on the bottom line. So what is your advice for companies which are trying to set up these programs, in addition to what Varsha was just saying, some fantastic inputs from her and Kuresha earlier also. So what are some quick points that you would state in a nutshell that they can use for making the business case for that?
Yeah, 1 minute or 1.5 minute answer. All the fantastic statistics, $60 billion spent by corporates on wellness. Same study, the return on investment is about 2 to 3 times. So you spend 60 billion, you make 180 billion. So any bottom line manager will be quite happy with that. And the Forbes has the full study and one should go through it. Keep an eye on some key metrics and indicators. What's your absenteeism due to health reasons or sickness? How many people are not reporting to work? What's the overtime? Is there a work overload in the organization? These are statistics which are absolutely, so I'm not asking you to create a new report. These are all available and we track them because even by statute, we are supposed to track some of these statistics. Retention or attrition rate, and in the exit interview, how many people are leaving because of, most people in some parts of the world may not express the correct thought, but if the exit interview is done well and with the right intent, well-being and pressure of work and such issues do come out. The bad boss may not come out, but some of these things will come out. And that is something, it's a useful thing to look at. And lastly, I think most of our companies do the culture or the employee engagement survey. There are some very pertinent questions on well-being, work-life balance, and how people are generally feeling. And I think that's a great indicator. And so I think as leaders, these are some ready reckoners that one can look at to really measure the health, plan, and do better.
Fantastic, Nivek. I think those 2 minutes were really loaded. So thank you so much for that. We do not have to go and recreate anything. We don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. The metrics are there. We just want to do that correlation and tell people that if you start taking care of people, people start taking care of your business, right?
On a lighter note,
Yeah.
Varsha is here with us from Oriental, one of the largest insurance companies. Look at your insurance claim, what's going on. That trend is very, very helpful on the well-being as well. So Varsha, I didn't want to miss that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for touching base on that.
So if anybody needs it, they'll come to you after the panel. Kuresha, last question, because we have another couple of minutes left. So we talked about leadership inside the company. We talked about role of HR. We talked about different other things, and it has been a fantastic discussion. 40 minutes is just not enough. One last question that I wanted to ask you specifically. Especially in the Middle East, because the focus of this conference is the Middle Eastern region, right? So Saudi Arabia, that's the biggest market here, both in terms of economy, size, population, all of that. UAE is close behind, usually bringing all the new initiatives, trying to do things which were not done earlier. So the government itself is actually very proactive, right? It's very supportive, and it wants to take care of everyone who is working, right? Not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. And I think this is a fairly unique thing if we look at it regionally. Like you might not find the same kind of initiatives that countries like Saudi, for instance, did during this pandemic, or UAE also, Qatar, and the other GCC countries. What message do you think that sends if the government is supportive or is trying to encourage businesses and employers to take care of their employees and people, holistic well-being? What message do you think that sends across? Does it make it sound more useful, more important, more doable?
I think it's very important, because if the message comes from the government itself, it means that they are paying more attention, and it's important for them also to know that their people are treated well. The well-being of their people matters. So if they are taking it seriously, then leaders in the different industries will also look at it in a different way. Makes it a lot easier to sell those initiatives and make people understand, because we said it, well-being is a new concept, and still there are leaders who would not understand. You would speak about spiritual or mental well-being, and they would look at you and, it's like, what are you talking about? So,
yoga, maybe.
yeah, it's very recent that we started, for example, yoga sessions on site. So I think if it comes from the government, then it's a strong message that is sent across, and it makes it a lot easier to help leaders understand the importance of those initiatives. So very important to me, yeah.
Fantastic. I think we'll just give 30 seconds each, and you can sum up your thoughts, and then we'll hand it back to Nilanjana for winding this up. So Varsha, your 30 seconds. Everyone who's watching, what should they do? What should they stop doing? Okay, so start doing, stop doing. 30 seconds.
Start treating our employees as an investment and not as an expense.
Fantastic.
Only the salary is not only the part, so they are investment. They are not an expense. So that's one thing to build in our culture. And stop doing, I tell you, stop micromanaging. I think we really have to go away from, with all technology, pandemic, we have learned to work remotely. Really stop micromanaging. That would be my message.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Very useful 30 seconds. Suresha, your 30 seconds, please. What should they start? What should they stop? Yeah.
I would say embrace the change, listen to the new trends, and don't stick to the old policies without making, an effort to accommodate for what people need. And don't treat everybody, don't put them in the same basket. Basically, we are people, we are all different. We have to look at them from a people perspective, not as resources or, as things or material. They are people at the end of the day.
Fantastic. I see you guys work better when there is a lot of pressure. 30 seconds and you guys are giving all the juice. Thank you so much, Kuresha. Fantastic. Nirbhi, Over to you to
5 seconds.
the cherry. Yeah. No,
Practice.
take 30. Take 30. Yeah.
Practice holistic approach. Look after your physical, mental, and like the spiritual well-being, and maintain that paradigm of sustainability. I like to repeat myself because hopefully then some things will stay back. And whatever we do, we must aim to do it in the long term. Really, I think those are my two requests to everybody.
Yeah. I think these are sustainable requests. People would give value to them. The last thing that I would say, I have a quote here from Socrates. I thought I'll just share it with you. So he said, "You can't go back and change the beginning." Winnie the Pooh also said it once. So, but I think he was just quoting Socrates. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can always start where you are and change the ending, right? So let's say that this is a beautiful start for each one of us and everyone who's joining us from across the globe and the Middle East. And we are going to do better, if not best, very soon. Thank you so much, and over to you, Nilanjana. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ali, and our fantastic panelists for such an engaging discussion and sharing with us some powerful yet beautiful practices on managing one's holistic well-being. And that concludes this session, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will
Thank you.
now
Thank you
move
so
to
much.
another session, which is very exciting. And it's a one-on-one session on how Spotify is building a work from anywhere culture with Michael Kim, Head of HR for JPAC, and Nina at Spotify. Thank you so much, panelists, once again, and see you on the other side.